All right, everyone. I've been asked to comment on the Nico Castel Libretto series, mainly the Italian ones. I have a question from Maestro George Henry Jackson, who's quite a fine conductor in UK, and he asks, do you find the massive abundance of open vowels in the Castel IPA libretti a problem and or totally wrong as a guide? And I would answer that, well, first of all, there are many good things about his books. He was a very great and influential coach, and actually a good friend of mine who helped me out quite a bit when I was first starting out in New York. Both he and his wife, Carol, were very, very good to me and very generous. His heart, I mean, the vast amount of libretto work that he's done in all languages just shows what an incredible big heart he did. And all of those word for word translations are very, very useful to the students. So let's talk about some of, while he did a very good thing by writing out everything in iPad, let's talk about a few issues that would come up with that libretto series. So the first thing is he tended to use La Scala Italian. So I'll give you examples. If you have the word a te, a te in Italian, most of Italy would say closed E, but at La Scala they tend to go a te and a me. And so basically standard Italian is closed E and correct Italian is closed E in both of those instances. The other thing is the endings, the unstressed endings were opened. So so in Italian, for instance, a word that has unstressed E's and O's, they're going to be closed, right? The A in the O form, not A and A. And in those libretto series, they are opened on the unstressed, right? So where did that come from? Well, it came from people observing when they first started to observe Italian singers and write down what they were actually doing, that they tended to open them. So you can go as far back as Evelina Colorni's book on Singers Italian, where she's attempting to notate that phenomenon. Now notating the endings, the unstressed, open, doesn't necessarily mean that they are completely open and they're actually more unstressed than, I mean, they're more open than the stressed vowels. So that's where the problem comes in, right? So simply stating that they're more open than speech and singing them as open vowels are two distinct things, right? So of course you will open up an A, right, more than you speak it, right? But you have to find within your own vocal technique what will work and have resonance. Now, you will not be understood, and it's also very technically difficult to over open. I remember working for a very fine conductor I accompanied who would say, as soon as you write something down, it becomes exaggerated, right? And someone else said that you get a good thing and you exaggerate it, it becomes vulgar. So what happens is a lot of people see those open vowels and just set out to sing them as open, as if they were open. They are not, right? And it's pretty difficult to sing and open unstressed vowels. It's actually much harder to sing. Okay, so one of the things that happened when I was in New York is I was standing on a train platform. I was very fortunate. And there were these two people speaking Italian on the platform. I thought they were tourists. It was in Great Neck, New York, on the way in on the Long Island Railroad. So I started, we just started striking up a conversation and we were talking. It was a young guy and a woman. And so we got on the train and we were continuing our conversation. So finally she got around to ask me, well, what do I do? And I said, well, I'm a vocal coach in New York. She said, well, that's very interesting. She said, because I'm the vocal coach at Juilliard. And her name was Corradina Caporello. So I was very lucky to just be standing next to Corradina Caporello. Now, this is the successor to Evelina Colorni, who was Toscanini's coach and was the coach at Juilliard during the time of Toscanini in New York. So obviously I wanted to pick her brain. So basically whenever I would conduct an opera, I would take the libretto and all of the points I would discuss with her, because I was forming opinions on certain things, and I was just noting certain phenomena that was not taught in diction. So I was lucky that every single time I conducted, I went through the entire libretto with Professor Caporello. Now, my question to her was, I know that Colorni wrote the unstressed open, but how did she coach them? She said she coached them closed, as Corradina also did. So we know that here we have the first person to actually write a proper Italian diction book that has all of the phrasal doubling and a lot of non-phonetic Italian, also teaching the unstressed as closed vowels and opening them to the point where you do not sing badly, right? So you're still keeping the principles of bel canto. Okay, so basically you're trying to open the vowels enough to allow the proper mix of head and torso resonance, but closed enough to sound close to the audience. Okay, now the other problem in the libretto series of Nico Castel is that he'll tend to open a vowel when it's on a high note, right? With the idea that, well, you're not going to really sing this vowel, but what it does is it distorts what the proper open and closed vowel is, right? So he probably should have left it the way it is and then allowed the student of singing to fend for his or herself at that point. So it would probably be better to give the proper closed vowel to avoid confusion at that point, right? And then the last thing is that assimilation is not fully explained, and also in Colorni, actually, she does not talk about this. Now, you'll see assimilation if you go to the RAI site, the pronunciation dictionary on the RAI site. You will see that assimilation of the ends and people speaking them, right? Now, Nico did do us all a favor by addressing it, right? But there are a few conflations that he makes, especially regarding assimilation before a fricative. So like the word inverno, infranto, things like that, those are not completely explained, and it looks as if they're M's. So you have a lot of singers going around saying inverno, which is wrong, and infranto as a result of that formula in the Castel books. Now, the last issue is that the way he considers phrasal doubling to be is more of a subjective, expressive phenomenon. So as you get excited, you double consonants, right? Yeah, it's only partly true. Mainly what happens is it's only because of what follows what, in that there existence of strong monosyllables and weak monosyllables. So again, in Colorni's book, her list is a little incomplete, but she lists a lot of the words that cause phrasal doublings, and she acknowledges the weak monosyllables. So, for more of that, just see my video or consult with the Colorni book, right? So that's the last issue. And so there's some indiscriminate doubling, and then a lot of doubling is left out, right, in those librettos. Overall, I am very grateful for his vast amount of work, and especially for the word-for-word translations that he did, and that he addressed the existence of non-phonetic Italian. It made it possible for all of us to address this. So when I first started coming across the phenomenon by basically I just listened to every single all Italian cast I could, and I would sit there with my score and notate all the little differences I heard and then compare, right? And when I started to hear phrasal doublings, I wrote them in my score, open and closed vowels and things like that. Without Nico bringing it up and putting it into print, we couldn't talk about that. So when I first in New York started addressing this, I would have singers walk out of coachings. I would have singers say, well, I've never heard this before. You know, so having Nico doing this and bringing this out to the forefront was great. Um, so, and you know, I guess the worst part is the technical suicide to sing unstressed vowels exaggeratedly open, as I hear a lot of people doing in the States. So that's it in a nutshell. I thank you to George Henry Jackson for asking the question. Please feel free to comment. You know, I love this kind of, I love this kind of discussion, and as we all seek knowledge and the truth, and you know, just a more efficient way to sing, a more efficient way to get the sense of the libretto across to our audiences. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, and we'll see you at the opera.